We're on? Okay, so this week, last week we read the Gosho. This week we're going to read the lecture on the Buddha's prophecy. Okay? Page 77 of the Hope-Filled Teachings of Nichiren Daishonin by Daisaku Ikeda. Everybody with me?
Yes.
Okay. Like last week, though, we're going to skip and go to page 83 to start. And then I'm going to read some things from the dictionary, and then we'll start reading the lecture. Okay? So I've got 83 first because I want to read from the Lotus Sutra, the 15th chapter, which is the emergence of the treasure tower. Okay? So here we go. We're talking about the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts here, right? So this is what the sutra literally says. It says, everybody's ready?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. If there were a person, now again, when he talks about this, think of yourself as the Buddha, or at least give yourself the option of viewing yourself from the perspective of what is being said here. Okay? Because this is about all Buddhists. What's being said about the 6 difficult and the 9 easy acts pertains to all Buddhists. Because all Buddhists will have to accomplish something that's commensurate with this description. Do you understand?
Yes.
The description is there for you to perceive and understand the difficulty in the goal and the vow that you have taken. All right? So that when those circumstances arise, we don't perceive them as punishments, misfortunes, bad karma. We perceive them from the perspective of the Buddha, who understands that the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts are there to validate the power of the law and the power of their life as the Buddha and overcome the difficulties that are necessary to be the Buddha. Okay? So here we go. If there were a person who took the empty sky in his hand and walked all around with it, that would not be difficult. But if after I have passed into extinction, one can write out and embrace this sutra and cause others to write it out, that will be difficult indeed. If one took the great earth, placed it on his toenail, and ascended with it to the Brahma heaven, that would not be difficult. But if after the Buddha has passed into extinction in the time of evil, one can even for a little while read this sutra, that will be difficult indeed. Even for a little while. If, when the fires come at the end of the kalpa, one can load dry grass on his back and enter the fire without being burned, that would not be difficult. But after I have passed into extinction, if one can embrace this sutra and expound it to even one person, that will be difficult indeed. So he's saying expounding this sutra to even one person is more difficult than those impossibilities that preceded it, okay? If one were to embrace this storehouse of 84,000 doctrines, the 12 divisions of the sutras, and expound it to others, causing listeners to acquire the 6 transcendental powers, though one could do that, that would not be difficult. But after I have entered into extinction, if one can listen to and accept this sutra and asking about its meaning, that will be difficult indeed. If a person expounds the law, allowing thousands, 10,000s, millions, immeasurable numbers of living beings equal to the Ganges sands to become arhats, endowed with the 6 transcendental powers, though one might confer such benefits, that would not be difficult. But after I have entered extinction, if one can honor and embrace a sutra such as this, that would be difficult indeed. For the sake of the Buddha way in innumerable numbers of lands, from the beginning until now, I have widely preached many sutras, and among them, this sutra is foremost. If one can uphold this, he will be upholding the Buddha's body. All you good men, after I've entered extinction, who can accept and uphold, read and recite this sutra? Now in the presence of the Buddha, let him come forward and speak his vow. Okay, do you understand? All right, do also take note of, he said, if one can uphold this, he will be upholding the Buddha's body. Remember that he said that. Now, what is the truest meaning of that as it relates to the Buddhism of the harvest, transcending into the Buddhism of the sowing based on the former in the middle of the day, and then the latter day. Okay? So, I wanted to read this from the sutra, the 6 difficult and 9 easy, or the 6 difficult and the 9 easy acts, and then I wanted to expand a little bit further and talk about faith. All right, hang on. Where did it go? I had it open. Sorry. So if you go to the dictionary, the Buddhist dictionary on page 174, or under the letter F, if you get it online, faith. All right, so I've read this to you a million times. I'm going to reread it before we start going into this Gosho, because this Gosho must be read with great faith to perceive it correctly. So, faith, a basic attitude emphasized in both early Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism. Faith constitutes the first of the 5 roots, or the 5 elements of practice conducive to enlightenment expounded in early Buddhism. The 5 roots are faith, exertion, memory, meditation, and wisdom. Mahayana Buddhism likewise emphasizes the importance of faith. The Flower Garden Sutra says, faith is the basis of the way and the mother of blessings. The Mahaparinirvana Sutra says, although there are innumerable practices that lead to enlightenment, if one teaches faith, then that includes all these practices. In the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni addresses Shariputra, who was known as foremost in wisdom, as follows: even you, Shariputra, in the case of this sutra, the Lotus Sutra, were able to gain entrance through faith alone. How much more so than the other voice hearers? The treatise on the great perfection of wisdom, attributed to Nagarjuna, reads, the great ocean of Buddhism can be entered through faith. In great concentration and insight, Chentai states, Buddhism is like an ocean that one can only enter with faith. Another Sanskrit word for faith is adhimukhi, which means confidence, and is rendered in Chinese Buddhism as belief and understanding. It means faith based on understanding, not faith based on blind belief. Okay? Faith based on seeking the way. All right? It's something that's ever building. It also means to first take faith in the Buddhist teaching and then to understand it. So do you understand why? That's the whole reason why they say faith is the entrance, and you can only enter by faith alone. Because unless you have faith in the teachings, you can't embrace the teachings at the level necessary to perceive and understand the teachings. Do you understand? If you just were to read the teachings as academic scriptures, they would have no power at all. Faith is what unlocks the power of those words and provides them with their correct and true meaning. Understand that. Okay? That he says it means faith based on understanding. It also means to first take faith in the Buddhist teachings and then understand it, which means, what does that involve though? How does that come about? Embracing the mentor. Okay? For you to have something to have faith in, somebody got to be trying to teach it to you, right? You have to be embracing something that you're encountering over your head, right? All right. So he's saying, adhimiki is the Sanskrit title of the Belief and Understanding chapter of the Lotus Sutra, translated by Kumarajiva. The Distinctions and Benefits chapter of the Lotus Sutra says, Ajita, if there are living beings who, on hearing that the lifespan of the Buddha is of such long duration, numberless major world system, dust particle kalpas, are able to believe and understand it even for a moment, the benefits they gain thereby will be without limit or measure. In the record of the orally transmitted teachings, Nichiren states, belief represents the value or a price we attach to a jewel or treasure, and understanding represents the jewel itself. It is through the one-word belief that we are able to purchase the wisdom of the Buddhas of the 3 existences. That wisdom is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay? And of course, I've got 50 other things I want to touch on, but I won't because it will take too long for me to read them all. I'll go back to them after the lecture. So let's go ahead and get into this so I make sure that I get this all done tonight. We're going to start reading on page 77 on the Buddhist prophecy. Okay, everybody's with me? Thank you, dear. I do need that. Let me get started here. Hang on. We already read the whole Goshen. Now we're going to read the portions that President Ikeda is going to lecture on. Page 77. The 7th volume of the Lotus Sutra states, after I have passed into extinction in the last 500-year period, you must spread it, the Lotus Sutra, abroad widely throughout Jampadvipa and never allow it to be cut off. On the one hand, it is deplorable to me that more than 2,200 years have already passed since the Buddha's demise. What evil karma prevented me from being born in his lifetime? Why could not I have seen the 4 ranks of sages in the former day of the law, or Tentai and Dingo in the middle day of the law? On the other hand, I rejoice at whatever good fortune enabled me to be born in the last 500-year period, and to read these true words of the sutra. Even if I had been born in the Buddha's lifetime, it would have served no purpose. For those who embraced the 4 flavors of teachings had not yet heard of the Lotus Sutra, because those are all pre-Lotus Sutra teachings, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Again, my being born in either the former or the middle day of the law would have been meaningless, for neither the scholars of the 3 schools of the south or the 7 schools of the north in China, nor those of the flower garland, true word, or any of the other schools believed in the Lotus Sutra. The great teacher Tentai states, in the last 500-year period, the mystic way will spread and benefit humankind far into the future. Does this not describe the time of wide propagation? The great teacher Dengyo says, the former and middle days are almost over, and the latter day is near at hand. These words reveal how much he longed for the beginning of the latter day of the law. If we consider the rewards of living in the different ages, it is clear that mine surpasses those of Nagarjuna, Vasubandhu, and excel those of even Tentai and Dingyo. Why? Come on, he just read it to you. He just said it to you. Are you guys paying attention? Why?
Because it's time.
Well, yeah, because the former and the middle day don't lead to a Buddhism that allows you to attain Buddhahood. All right? That's what he's going to explain right now. Question. I have seen that the Buddha's prophecy applies to you. And again, what's significant then of being born in the latter day? You can attain Buddhahood in your present form. You couldn't attain it in your present form in the form of the middle day. Question, I have seen that the Buddhist prophecy applies to you. Now, what do you yourself predict? So he's posted a question saying that the Buddhist prophecy applies to Nichiren. He's asking him, he's making that statement to himself in the text. But he's qualifying it saying, based on what you've said, I see that the Buddhist prophecy applies to you. What do you yourself predict? Answer. In light of the Buddhist prophecy, the last 500-year period has already begun. I say that without fail, Buddhism will arise and flow forth from the east, from the land of Japan. That's a pretty bodacious thing for him to be saying at the time he's saying it. Okay? 21 years have gone by since I, Nichiren, understood this principle and began propagation. During this period, I have suffered difficulties day after day and month after month. In the last 2 or 3 years, among other things, I was almost put to death. The chances are 1 in 10,000 that I will survive the year or even the month. Don't forget he's doing this from Sado. If anyone questions these things, let that person ask my disciples for details. So he's not even sure he is legitimately going to make it through this alive. What fortune is mine, though, regardless of those circumstances. His spirit and his real life condition is, what fortune is mine to expiate in one lifetime the offenses of slandering the law I've accumulated from the infinite past. That's his lesson for us, to perceive our own lives in the same manner. How delighted I am to serve Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings, whom I have never seen. I pray that before anything else, I can guide and lead the ruler and those others who persecuted me. Complete compassion. I will tell the Buddha about all the disciples who have aided me, and before I die, I will transfer the great blessings deriving from my practice to my parents who gave me life. Now, as if in a dream, I understand the Heart of the Treasure Tower chapter. The Heart of the Treasure Tower chapter is the six difficult and 9 easy acts. Okay? As the sutra states, if you were to seize Mount Sumeru, in other words, he understands the truth of Buddhahood. Do you understand? All right, so he's saying, as the sutra states, these are the principles, actually. He's talking about, I've been teaching for 21 years, since I understood these principles. Okay, it's from the six difficult 9 easy acts. He's saying, as the sutra states, if you were to seize Mount Sumeru and fling it far off to the measureless Buddha lands, that too would not be difficult. But if after the Buddha has entered extinction in the time of evil, you preach this sutra, that will be difficult indeed. So what he's saying is that 21 years ago, I realized that that's what the emerging from the earth chapter is actually all about, and devoted my life to the propagation of the law that I've identified as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, because this is the fifth 500-year period, and it's time for it to emerge. Do you understand? All right, so he's saying he's not declaring himself to be the eternal or the true Buddha, but he's just qualifying exactly what's happened based on, and also what the sutra says will happen. And what the sutra says qualifies that individual that's going to clarify the teaching for the latter day of the law that will emerge in the fifth 500-year period. Do you understand? Okay, so he's saying, the great teacher Dingyo says, Shakyamuni taught that the shallow is easy to embrace, but the profound is difficult. To discard the shallow and seek the profound is the way of a person of courage. So what did the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts qualify? Very difficult to uphold the sutra in the latter day. Correct? Can only be done by a person of courage, frankly speaking. All right? He's qualifying and requalifying that exactly what he's experiencing and what his disciples should expect to experience is already qualified in the Lotus Sutra as being that thing which qualifies you as a votary. That's what says you are the Buddha, those difficulties. Okay? The great teacher Tentai trusted and obeyed Shakyamuni and worked to uphold the Lotus School, spreading its teachings throughout China. We of Mount Hei inherited the doctrine from Tentai and worked to uphold the Lotus School and to disseminate its teachings throughout Japan. I, Nichiren of Awa province, have doubtless inherited the teachings of the law from these 3 teachers, and in this era of the latter day, I work to uphold the Lotus School and disseminate the law. Together, we should be called the 4 teachers of the 3 countries. So he's putting himself on an equal footing with Shakyamuni, Tentai, and Dengyo. He is saying, I am no less than any of those 3. Okay? So every time he's ever talked about Shakyamuni like Lord of Teachings, so whatever he said about Shakyamuni, he just says Shakyamuni's not greater than me. Tentai's not greater than me. Dingyo's not greater than me. And frankly, I'm the only one upholding the law in the fifth 500-year period. Not even Shakyamuni did that. Do you understand? So he says, that I, Nichiren of Awa province, have doubtless inherited the teaching of the law from these 3 teachers, and in this era, in this era of the latter day, I work to uphold the Lotus School and to disseminate the law. Together, we should be called the 4 teachers of the 3 countries, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Starting with President Ikeda's lecture now, which is really great. I hope you really pay attention. I hope I'm able to read it in a way that grabs you. And if anybody has questions, stop me. It's very important for you to understand. On the Buddha's, page 79, on the Buddha's prophecy is one of my favorite writings of Nichiren Daishonin. To me, it powerfully communicates his lofty commitment to actualize Shakyamuni Buddha's prophecy of future propagation of the mystic law throughout the world, as all of his disciples take the vow to also do. That's the bodhisattvas of the earth, right? And Nichiren's clarion call urging his followers, the bodhisattvas of the earth, of future generations to rise into action for the sake of worldwide Kosen Rufu in the same spirit as the Buddha, to be of the same mind as Nichiren, resonates eternally in my heart. It would be no exaggeration to say that this writing is the source of the Soka Gakkai spirit, which is directly connected to Nichiren Daishonin. And that's the truth. Second, the Soka Gakkai president Josei Toda put great emphasis on this writing and often lectured on it. In fact, he also spoke about it during our historic Osaka campaign in 1956. Out of his wish for the great success of his disciples, I will never forget the profound debt we all owe him. Mr. Toda specifically chose on the Buddha's prophecy for the topic of his first general lecture in Osaka held on January 17, 1956. Pardon me. I had fish for dinner. In response to a question he fielded after his lecture on that occasion, he ardently said to the effect, the bodhisattvas of the earth, who in the Lotus Sutra are entrusted with the law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, will be reborn and gathered together at the time of Kosen Rufu. Therefore, you, as bodhisattvas of the earth, can't stay poor. Remember, you have the power of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the potential to realize infinite good fortune and benefit. We have to tap this power. You have to tap this power yourselves by chanting and teaching others to do the same. The immortal history of ever-victorious Kansai, the tremendous success that we as representatives of the people achieved in the Osaka campaign, accomplishing what everyone had thought impossible, all arose from fresh determination and vibrant initiatives of our members, bodhisattvas of the earth, who had been ignited by Mr. Toda's impassioned declaration. So what does that say to you? You must constantly rekindle this spirit all the time. Yourself. You must have the wisdom. You must have mentors. You must put yourself in a circumstance so that that vow is revitalized. It's very, very, very important. And it's easy for it to go away because the devil of the sixth heaven is going to try and strip it right off of you. Mm-hmm. Okay? So he's saying that that's actually what allowed them to do the impossible in Osaka, was President Toda challenging them and them responding to his challenge as mentors and disciples. Do you understand? All right. And that's what President Ikeda has continued, all right, as his disciple and as President Toda as his mentor. Let us carefully study, he continues on page 79, on the Buddha's prophecy and once again dedicate ourselves to the great vow of Kosen Rufu, the Soka Gakkai starting point, as we have set in motion glorious waves of victories from each of our districts. Going on back to the Gosho again, to the specific portion he's going to comment on. The Medicine King chapter in the 7th volume Lotus Sutra states, after I, Shakyamuni, have passed into extinction in the last 500-year period, you must spread it, the Lotus Sutra, abroad widely. In other words, carry out Kosen Rufu throughout Jampadvipa, which is the entire world, and never allow it to be cut off. On the one hand, it is deplorable to me that more than 2,200 years have already passed since the Buddha's demise. What evil karma prevented me from being born in his lifetime? Why could not I have seen the four ranks of sages, people such as the Buddha's voice-hearer disciples Mahakashayapa and Ananda, or the Buddhist scholars Nanga Jr. and Vasubandhu, in the former day of the law, or the great teachers Tentai and Dingyo in the middle day of the law? On the other hand, I rejoice at whatever good fortune enabled me to be born in the last 500-year period that marks the start of the latter day of the law, and to read these true words of the sutra. Even if I had been born in the Buddha's lifetime, it would have served no purpose. For those who embraced the four flavors of teachings, i.e. the Hinayana and Provisional Mahayana teachings, had not yet heard of the Lotus Sutra. Again, my being born in either the former or middle days of the law would have been meaningless, for neither the scholars of the 3 schools of the south or the 7 schools of the north in China, nor those of the Flower Garland True Word or any other schools of Buddhism in Japan believed in the Lotus Sutra. The great teacher Tentai states in the last 500-year period that marks the start of the latter day, the mystic way, i.e. the mystic law, will spread and benefit humankind far into the future. Now, Tentai says that, but he doesn't qualify what that law is, does he? He just calls about the law. All right? Does this not describe the time of widespread propagation, Kosen Rufu? The great teacher Dingyo says the former and middle days are almost over and the latter day is near at hand. These words reveal how much he longed for the beginning of the latter day of the law. If we consider the rewards of living in the different ages, it is clear that mine surpass those of Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu and excel those of Tentai and Dingyo. Going on President Ikeda's lecture, page 80. The Buddhist prophecy, a testament for followers of future generations. Okay, so this shows for us. All right, and those that we teach. Remember, this should not be the first and only time you ever read this. It certainly isn't for me, and it shouldn't be for any of you. You should read this Gosho over and over and over again. On the Buddhist prophecy concerns itself primarily with fulfilling or actualizing the Buddhist prophecy for the future. What Buddha are they talking about? What Buddha are they? What Buddhist prophecy are they talking about? We're Buddhas, yes.
Yeah.
But did you prophesy something?
No.
I didn't prophesy anything. Did you prophesy anything? No. It seems to me somewhere it says here, I have seen that the Buddha's prophecy applies to you. Now, what do you yourself predict? And then he makes a prediction. It's Nichiren's prophecy of Kosen Rufu, of the fact that Nam Myoho Renge Kyo will spread for the 10 years and beyond of the latter day. Dingyo didn't say that. Tentai didn't say that. Shakyamuni Buddha didn't say that. Do you understand? Okay. This is Nichiren is the Buddha on the Buddhist prophecy. Oh. Okay. When it was written, it seemed it was speaking of Shakyamuni because the teaching had not yet arrived. That's what he's saying. My teaching hadn't come yet for any of those guys to know any of this stuff. When it comes to fortune, you're all more fortunate than any of them because you can know this stuff. Get it? All right, so he says, on the Buddhist prophecy at the bottom of page 80, starting again. On the Buddhist prophecy concerns itself primarily with fulfilling or actualizing the Buddhist prophecy for the future. Kosen Rufu. On one level, the Buddhist prophecy indicates the prophecy of Shakyamuni, but the essential purpose of this writing is to announce the prophecy of Nichiren Daishonin as the Buddha of the latter day of the law, which qualifies him then as what? The original teacher. All right? No matter what he says as an expedient to those, again, because his teaching is just coming out. He can't quote. This is the way it is. He's got to go lay all that down. He's in the process of doing that. This is part of that process. But 750 years later, we know what's happened already. We know what's going on in advance of the next thing happening because we already know what the next thing's going to happen is. He doesn't at this time. He's on Sado Island, not sure if he's even going to make it off. He's writing this for the sake of his believers that are going, how in the hell did you end up in this situation? Okay? Seriously. He's already written the opening of the eyes, and he's already written the object of devotion for observing the mind. So he's already left the legacy that Nichikan is going to divine as the oneness of the person law. That concept, that correct understanding, won't occur for another 400 years. So everybody in that 400 years is never going to clearly be taught and understand that the Buddha that we're talking about continuously really is the Buddha of original cause. Do you understand? Not original effect. All right, so he's saying Shakyamuni's prophecy. Yes.
Speak again.
Pardon?
Just
Original cause?
Original cause.
Original cause. Original cause is the thing that's associated with Kuan Ganjo. Okay, beginningless time is original cause. Okay, the original cause is actually also the original attainment of the way by the original teacher. Don't forget, according to our Buddhism, we perceive this as the law is everything. Okay, there was an original entity that had the teacher, that the law was actually the teacher to that Buddha who attained the way through understanding and perceiving that law. That original teacher then is the teacher of all Buddhas that occur after that. The law has always occurred, has always been there. All things that consist of the law have always all been there then. But a perception and understanding as a teacher and disciple, as a process that can be perfected upon, that can compassionately be conveyed and extended. Again, think of the great fortune of the original teacher perceiving the truth that no one else can perceive. And what is that original thought of the original teacher? Yes, that is perceiving that. Let me go on with the lecture. It will become more clear. But again, that is the predication of why Nichiren is Nichiren and why we can chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. He's going to get into all this. It's going to all be self-explanatory if I just walk you through it. Right? So the essential purpose of this writing is to announce the prophecy of Nichiren Daishonin as the Buddha of the latter day of the law. Page 81. Shakyamuni's prophecy is contained in the passage from the Medicine King chapter of the Lotus Sutra, which Nichiren cites at the beginning of this writing. It conveys the Buddha's will and decree, urging followers in the evil age after his passing, and especially in the latter day of the law, to battle the onslaught of devilish functions and ensure that the widespread propagation of Lotus Sutra throughout the entire world never ceases. Going back to your question, one other aspect of this is that again, the predication of the Buddhism, the sowing, is based on the causality that is the simultaneity of cause and effect. Right. Not karmic, did this and in another lifetime appeared this way. Okay? This is the original cause. Original cause is the simultaneity of cause and effect. Do you understand? So everything's contained within that original cause. Everything is contained within that original cause, and it is from beginningless time. So it has no beginning. Because it has no beginning, it has no end. It is infinity in both directions. It's the membrane, if you want to get into particle physics and the latest in string theory, it all conforms to all the latest science in reality. Okay? We have an infinite number of universes, actually. There is no beginning or end. All right, so at the top of page 81. Shakyamuni's prophecy is contained in the passage from the Medicine King chapter of the Lotus Sutra, which Nichiren cites at the beginning of this writing. It conveys the Buddha's will and decree, urging followers in the evil age after his passing, and especially in the latter day of the law, to battle the onslaught of devilish forces and ensure that the widespread propagation of Lotus Sutra throughout the entire world never ceases. Now, how does he do that? He says, it conveys the Buddha's will and decree, urging the followers in the evil age after his passing, and especially in the latter day of the law, to battle the onslaught of devilish forces and ensure that the widespread propagation of Lotus Sutra throughout the entire world never ceases. In this right, again, if you understand the 6 difficult and 9 easy acts, okay, that's what he's qualifying here. That's overcoming devilish forces, right? That's overcoming all the serious resistance you will meet in the process of trying to attain the way and attain Buddhahood in your present form. That's why so few people do it. That's why it's so difficult to find teachers that understand it or represent it. All right? In this writing, middle of the first column, page 81, in this writing, Nichiren states that he alone has actualized Shakyamuni's prophecy. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. He alone. He then predicts that the great law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is different than the law referred to in the Lotus Sutra, even in the 16th chapter. Do you understand that? Right? Different law, the same law, but a different time. The correct law from the perception of the original teacher in the time that lasts forever. Mappo. Okay? He then predicts that the great law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which is the essence of the Lotus Sutra, will spread widely throughout the world. Remember I said, where it says you'll be upholding the body of the Buddha? Because until then, that's where the body of the Buddha was contained. Once that Buddha, that's body is contained in the Lotus Sutra, made his advent, he then created the object of devotion, which is now the Buddha's body. Do you understand? The Buddha's body is no longer upheld and contained within the 28th chapter of Lotus Sutra. It's contained within the Buddhism of the sowing and the object of devotion that Nichiren left for us called the Gohonzon. Okay? And it's through our faith that we tap into that relationship with the original teacher that he's describing right now, which is the only reason anyone can attain Buddhahood in their present form. He's going to qualify all this. In this writing, Nichiren states that he alone has actualized Shakyamuni's prophecy, which is why he alone could establish the Gohonzon. Don't forget, that's the important key. All right? He then predicts that the great law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which he is the first to reveal, and he qualifies it as the essence of Lotus Sutra, and he predicts that it will widely spread throughout the world, which it has. Okay? Nichiren composed on the Buddhist prophecy in the intercalary 5th month of 1273 at Ichinosawa on Sado Island, his place of exile. Interestingly, no recipient is specified. This would seem to indicate that this work is an important writing meant as a will and testament addressed to all of his followers in the present and the future, in case he didn't get a chance to say much more. Already, while on Sado, he had composed the opening of the eyes and the object of devotion for observing the mind, which clarify the object of devotion, or Gohonzon, in terms of the person and the law, respectively, as we perceive it now based on Nichikan's qualification explanation of that, right? Based on the profound doctrines. So in other words, again, without Nichikan, he just qualified person and law, Ninpa-wika. That concept doesn't exist until Nichikan. All right? Based on these profound doctrines on the Buddhist prophecy explains that Nichiren Buddhism, by enabling people to attain the infinitely noble state of life that is one with the mystic law, which is Buddhahood, all right, in your present form, the fundamental law of the universe, is the supreme teaching for the enlightenment of all humanity in the latter day. Okay? That's a very specific declarative. Based on these profound doctrines, Daisaku Ikeda says, on the Buddhist prophecy explains that Nichiren Buddhism, that's why he's qualifying it now. He's actually talking about the Soka philosophy, as we practice it correctly, are able to manifest actual Ichinen Sanzen as living beings. Okay? Not theoretically. To live and be the Buddha. That only comes from living the Soka philosophy as it's been taught by the mentors that have preceded us. President Makaguchi, President Toda, President Ikeda. Do you understand? And those people that have studied their encouragement. All right? So, he goes on. The joy of being born in the latter day of the law. At the outset, Nichiren Daishonin says that it is regrettable that, as a result of being born in the latter day of the law, he has missed the chance of meeting Shakyamuni Buddha, who expounded the Lotus Sutra, or the great Buddhist teachers Tentai Dingyo and others, who propagated the sutra during the former middle days of the law. The latter day is a period far removed from the time of Shakyamuni. It's kind of saying, like, it's really not the same time or place anymore. It is an age when his influence as a teacher declines. Why? Because there's a billion different interpretations of what he said and what he was trying to say. All right? It becomes confused. It becomes muddied. This is the muddied age of great evil. What's the great evil? The twisting and the distortion of the true teaching. It is an age when his influence as a teacher declines. His teachings lapse into formality, and Buddhism as a whole loses its power to lead people to enlightenment. People can still practice it. People can still go to temples and give alms. They can do all kinds of bullshit, but none of them become enlightened as a result of that. Mm-hmm. They think they're paying their way to heaven. They're as full of shit as anybody else on earth. Right. Okay? So he's saying, in this writing, Nichiren describes the latter day as a time when Shakyamuni's teachings remain in form only and are neither practiced nor produce any proof of benefit. Buddhahood, actual Ichinen Sanzen. Mm-hmm. Along with this decline in Buddhism, it is also an age when people's life force wanes and when the age itself becomes polluted. Accordingly, people of Nichiren's day regarded the latter day as a deplorable time to be alive, both in terms of the law and the age. And think of all the things that we're influenced and subject to have to deal with now that you wouldn't have been back in 13th century Japan or any time in that period. All of the influx of information that we have to dissect and assimilate and have our minds affected by. They didn't have any of that. They didn't have no TV. They didn't have a bunch of opinions coming in over the airwaves. There was no internet to go back and forth on Facebook. Okay? Mm-hmm. You were much less subjected to the potential of other people affecting your thinking than we are today. Now we're like hit constantly with all kinds of different perceptions that are incorrect perceptions. They influence our correct perception. That's why we have to fight on a daily basis. We have to get back in front of the Gohonzon and reconnect ourselves with the original teacher, right? Okay, so he says, however, Nichiren reverses this, saying that being born in the latter day is in fact a cause for rejoicing. Because we have all those difficulties we're subjected to, we're living in the day when they are. Okay? Because we're living in the day where they are, we can find the true teacher, the true teaching, the correct object of devotion, and we can attain Buddhahood in our present form. We couldn't do that in Shakyamuni's time. We couldn't do that in the former day. We couldn't do that in the middle day. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. All right, so he's saying this is because the latter day coincides exactly with the last 500-year period that Shakyamuni specifies in the Medicine King chapter as the time for the realization of his wish for the widespread propagation of the mystic law throughout the entire world. As supporting evidence, Nichiren further cites the words of Tentai and Dingyo, which can be read as expressions of their wish to be born in this latter age. On the face of it, the latter day is an age of deadlock and decline. But Nichiren says that, in terms of the law, we are fortunate to live in an age when the correct teaching will spread. Continue on page 82. The ultimate mystic principle and the infinitely noble life of the Buddha. How then can Nichiren Daishonin say that, in terms of the law, the latter day is in fact a fortunate age? On the Buddhist prophecy, in addition to outlining the nature of the latter day, Nichiren elucidates both the teaching that will spread during that age, and the person who will propagate it. In conclusion, he states, the heavenly gods and benevolent deities, as well as the bodhisattvas, numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds who emerge from beneath the earth, that's the bodhisattvas of the earth, right? Mm-hmm. Will protect him, the person who discards the provisional teachings and correctly upholds the Lotus Sutra, as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. Under their protection, he will establish and spread abroad widely, carry out Kosen Rufu throughout Jambudvipa, the entire world, the object of devotion of the essential teaching, or the 5 characters of Myoho Rengekyo. Now I'll read that again, and then President Ikeda is going to explain it very specifically. On the Buddhist prophecy, on the page 82, last paragraph, on the Buddhist prophecy, in addition to outlining the nature of the latter day, Nichiren elucidates both the teaching that will spread during that age, the teaching of the Buddhism of the sowing, and the person who will propagate it, him. Mm-hmm. In conclusion, he states him and those that are of the same mind as him. Mm-hmm. All right? Nichiren elucidates both the teaching that will be spread during that age and the person who will propagate it. In conclusion, he states that the heavenly gods and benevolent deities, as well as The bodhisattvas, numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds who emerge from beneath the ground, as well as the bodhisattvas of the earth, will protect him. He's talking about himself. Now, who's given him alms to survive on Sado Island? Bodhisattvas of the earth. Who protect him on the Izu Peninsula? Bodhisattvas of the earth. People that met him, embraced his teaching, chanted Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and had faith that he understood what he was talking about. Okay? So, bodhisattvas of the earth are the ones that protected him. Understand that. When the bright light came across at Tatsunokuchi, those are heavenly gods and benevolent deities. Unexplainable workings of the environment, okay, that inexplicably arise to protect. All right? So he's saying, will protect him. He's talking about that votary that will appear in the fifth 500-year period that will reveal the law correctly. Do you understand? The person who discards the provisional teachings and correctly upholds the Lotus Sutra will protect him. The person who discards the provisional teachings and correctly upholds the sutra, the Lotus Sutra. Who did that? Nichiren, right? Okay. As the votary of the Lotus Sutra. So they're going to protect him as the teacher in the latter day, which means that he is the original teacher. Do you understand? It's under their protection. He, the original teacher, who is manifest as Nichiren, will establish and spread, under their protection, he will establish and spread widely, he will spread abroad widely throughout Jampadvipa, the entire world, the object of devotion of the essential teaching. So what's he going to really propagate? A profound understanding? A written teaching that again can be convoluted and that is not directly linked to him? What's he going to do? What did it just say that he's going to do? He says that they're going to protect him so he can do this. Listen to what it says again. I'm sorry. I got to make sure you understand exactly what this is saying. The heavenly gods and benevolent deities, okay, which we already qualified, like a Tatsunokuchi, as well as the bodhisattvas of the earth, right, will protect him, okay, as the votary of the Lotus Sutra. I'm eliminating all the parenthetical clarifications here, right? He says, under their protection, he will establish and spread widely throughout Jampadvipa the object of devotion of the essential teaching or the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo. Okay, do you understand why that's significant? How do you attain Buddhism in your present form of the Buddhism of the sowing without the correct object of devotion? No. You may not. No. So even though now he's giving a teaching, it's of no consequence without the correct teacher being in a permanent place as part of the practitioner's practice. Do you understand? Do you understand? That's why we have the Gohanza. That's why we don't just chant in the car, or, whatever. Do you understand? So, in other words, the teaching that should be spread in the latter day of the law is the object of devotion. So the teaching that should be spread by the bodhisattvas of the earth in the latter day to achieve widespread propagation, kosen rufu, is the object of devotion of the essential teaching. Okay? Or the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo, which is what that Gohonzon is. And the person who will spread it is the votary of the Lotus Sutra, which is why they are one with it. Do you understand? All right. And there's no separation between us and them, right? We're all living beings, right? It doesn't mean God incarnated himself in that object of devotion. No. The enlightened nature of each of us is enshrined in that Gohonzon, and it is no different than the enlightened nature of Nichiren Daishonin. And that's his whole teaching. And the purpose of all Buddhas is to make all others equal to them, right? That's what he's done in doing this. Do you understand? Okay. So he says, when these two requirements are met. So why are they required, George? Because in their absence, there's no oneness of the person and the law, which means the law is still separated in the way it's perceived. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
When these two requirements are met, the latter day is transformed from a deplorable and defiled age in which the Buddha's teaching has all but perished into a joyous age of widespread propagation of the Lotus Sutra. How? When these two requirements are met, why did suddenly the evil age of the latter day transform from a deplorable place into what?
Tranquil light.
The land of tranquil light. Exactly. Why? How? Because the two requirements are met for people to achieve Buddhahood in their present form and to turn hell into the land of tranquil light. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Isn't this cool?
Yeah.
Isn't this cool? Doesn't it all make sense?
Yeah.
All right, so he's saying, the object of devotion of the essential teaching, the Gohonzan, or the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo, constitutes the ultimate mystic principle for the enlightenment of all people. The ultimate mystic principle by which they are able to attain their original state. All right? And manifest it. It is also the infinitely noble life of the Buddha that is one with the mystic principle. Do you understand? The object of devotion of the essential teaching or the 5 characters of Myoho Renge-kyo constitute the ultimate mystic principle for the enlightenment of all people. It is also the infinitely noble life of the Buddha that is one with this mystic principle. Moreover, it is the supreme law by which all Buddhas gain enlightenment. As such, it can be called the seed of Buddhahood in the sense that it is the cause for attaining the highest state of life. This is how you attain Buddhahood in your present form. You embrace the object of devotion and you manifest the latent state of Buddhahood. All right? Going on to page 84. All people, so there's nobody that doesn't possess this. All people inherently possess the seed of Buddhahood, without exception. Even women, evil people, me, everybody. Okay? And if I do, anybody should. He said, all people inherently possess the seed of Buddhahood, but the darkness or ignorance that shrouds their lives prevents that seed from readily functioning. Hence the need for a teacher who shows the way to conquer that darkness, because that's all we are here by qualifying this. We're conquering darkness. We're turning it into light. We're changing poison into medicine. Okay? Conquer that darkness, and for a teaching that clearly elucidates the universal existence of this seed. Okay? So you got to have the Buddhism of the sowing and somebody that understands it. In the latter day of the law, this teacher, whoever that might be, is the votary of the Lotus Sutra. Okay? There's the original votary that he was just talking about, but now he's qualifying that anybody's of the same mind that actually is doing those same things is also the votary of the Lotus Sutra. Because what are they living their life for? Correct understanding. They've attained actual Ichinen Sons, and frankly, okay, do you understand? They're the same. They're the same as Nichiren. Okay? But they're not the original teacher, but they are the manifestation of that influence. Without that manifestation, that original teacher's influence cannot be perpetuated on a life-to-life basis, can it?
No.
It's just a bunch of words that in the process of translation at some point in time will change. All right? The people of the latter day need the direct path to enlightenment. That is the mystic law, a path that activates the seed of Buddhahood within them. That is why Nichiren first clarified the teacher and the teaching, or the person and the law, in the opening of the eyes and the object of devotion for observing the mind, and then composed on the Buddha's prophecy to issue his declaration for widespread Kosen Rufu. But understand, that last paragraph could not have been expressed or understood in the manner that it just was without Nichiren Shonin's dissertation on the 6 great secret laws. Do you understand? Ninpo Ikka is the basis of everything that he just said. Okay? So anybody in any other school other than Nichiren Shoshu would not be aware of the perception that was just qualified here. They wouldn't agree with it. You can understand why they wouldn't agree with it. Understand why they won't agree with it. Okay? It's not in their teaching. And they're going to perceive us as making it up. And that's why Mugi washing is so necessary. Because you're going to constantly have these influences that are going to challenge the truth. And your faith has to be strong enough that you can discern what is the truth. All right? The votary of the Lotus Sutra who battles devilish forces is the teacher of the latter day. Now, who's he talking about?
Yes.
Each one of us that actually attains actual Ichiren Sanzen. Sorry, I moved your camera there, buddy. Okay? Sorry. Understand that. He's not talking about just Nichiren Daishonin now. Y'all understand? Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about Buddhas, actual Ichiren Sanzen, Bodhisattva of the earth. Okay? Nichiren Daishonin's identification of the votary of the Lotus Sutra as the teacher who will propagate the mystic law in the latter day is a point of enormous importance in his teaching of Buddhism. This is because the process of bringing to fruition the seed of Buddhahood, which is the law of life, and battling the darkness or ignorance that prevents the seed from sprouting, all come down to human beings themselves. The person, any person, one who can do this, the person who qualifies as the teacher of the law, therefore, must be someone who can demonstrate through personal example that individuals have the power to break through their fundamental darkness and manifest the potential of the seed of Buddhahood. This is the votary of Lotus Sutra to whom he speaks. What did he just say? Clear as goddamn day. The person who qualifies as the teacher of the latter day of the law, therefore must be someone who has attained actual Ichiren Sanzen.
Yeah.
That's what he just said. Mm-hmm. Who has correct faith and practices correctly as a Buddha in his present form.
Hello.
Do you understand?
Yes.
I'll read it again just to make sure that that's Nichiren's identification of the votary of the Lotus Sutra as the teacher who will propagate the mystic law, which could be any one of us if we become that teacher, is a point of enormous importance in his teaching of Buddhism. This is because the process going from stage 1 to stage 6 in the 6 stages of practice, Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, is actual Ichiren Sanzen. Understand that. Right. Bringing to fruition the seed of Buddhahood, which means the attainment of Buddhahood in your present form, which is the law of life, and battling the darkness or ignorance that prevents the seed from sprouting, which means overcoming fundamental darkness. Okay, you have defeated the devil of the sixth heaven. He can't make you think, that function can no longer make you think you're not the Buddha. Okay? Everything you see around you just validates that you are. Okay? All come down to human beings themselves. The person who qualifies as the teacher of the latter day of the law, therefore, must be someone who can demonstrate through personal example that individuals have the power to break through their fundamental darkness and manifest the potential of the seed of Buddhahood. Daisaku Ikeda, or any of his disciples doing exactly what he said to do, I count myself as one of them. This is the votary of the Lotus Sutra of whom he speaks. The votary is one who actually puts the sutra's teaching into practice and attains Buddhahood in their present form. Someone who only studies the Lotus Sutra or who only reads and recites it out of formality cannot be considered a votary, no matter how much you want to pat yourself on the back as being one because you're a member of the Soka Gakkai. He is not saying that. He is not saying that. You are not a votary of the Lotus Sutra just because you're a member of the Soka Gakkai. Believe me.
No.
All right? Where am I? I lost myself already. The defining qualities of the votary Lotus Sutra are practicing the Sutra's teachings with one's life and showing the actual proof of manifesting the potential of the seed of Buddhahood. Actual proof. In particular, to secure the way for all people to bring the seed of Buddhahood to fruition in the reality of their own lives, the votary needs to have powerful conviction and make determined efforts to defeat the devilish functions that will invariably arise in the course of this challenge. Can't take this challenge without them coming out. Right? It's all spelled out very clearly. Struggles against devilish functions are also the starting point of the Soka Gakkai. Our founding president, Tsunesaburo Makaguchi, proclaimed, listen to how indignant he is to the people that are obviously giving him a ration of shit for him to say what he's about to say. Tsunesaburo Makaguchi proclaimed, it must be said that the actual proof of Shakyamuni's prediction that 3 millennia ago of the defiled and evil age of the latter day of the law, a fearful and evil age such as the present, is borne out not so much by serious crimes as robbery and murder. So that's not what makes it evil. Robbery and murder and mayhem in society. Or by social ills. Rather, it is due to, and think of the world today. Rather, it is due to high-ranking priests and the so-called accomplished, wise, and learned, who, while occupying positions of high office and high standing in society and appearing to possess discernment, integrity, and virtue, are in fact jealous and disparaging of persons of great good. They acquiesce to and abet persons of great evil, and in this way put their energy into protecting their positions and maintaining the status quo.
Sifu.
Sifu. Okay? Shifu, seafood, whatever you want to say. Any organization that misses the point.
Yeah.
Any organization that misses the point.
Yeah.
And Daisaku Ikeda is the one calling it out here, not me. Those weren't my words. Those were Makaguchi's words. That's Daisaku Ikeda letting you know this shit's been going on for a long freaking time. Yep. In the latter day, people of seemingly upstanding character and reputation in society will harbor jealousy and resentment toward people of integrity. That's why they put Tsunesaburo Makaguchi in prison. Right. And they will seek to ingratiate themselves with people who are corrupt and authoritarian. That's why the Minobu school took over all of Nichiren Buddhism. That such a paradoxical situation will inevitably arise is one of the main reasons why it is so hard to propagate the correct teaching of Buddhism in this defiled age. Because there are already teachers out there saying they're the correct teacher and they understand it. They don't understand shit. All right? It is the mission of the votary. He just described what the votary is. Yes. All right? So those that qualify as the votary, their mission, okay, as it relates to Lotus Sutra, is, it is the mission of the votary Lotus Sutra, the teacher of the latter day of the law, to ceaselessly challenge this difficulty. Okay? So to never go, screw you all, I'm already handled. I don't need this shit. No. You got to keep after it. You got to make yourself, put your face out there. You got to preach and teach. You got to do what you can. Everybody's with me? Yes. Okay. He says, because the first 3 Soka Gakkai presidents persevered in this struggle as our examples, they could take the lead for Kosen Rufu in the modern age. Continuing on page 85, and I'm going to go ahead and, wow. How long have we been going?
It's 1 hour.
We've already there. Okay. I will stop here then. I didn't know I would be embellishing as much as I obviously have been. And I got more stuff to read from next week. So at any rate, we'll stop here. Okay. It's raining like crazy outside. Page 85. We start again next week with question. I have seen that the Buddhist prophecy applies to you, Nichiren. Now what do you yourself predict? Thank you.
Thank you.